Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. It is a road show on Hail Varsity Radio down at the Single Barrel. Chris Schmidt and the coach, Hall of Famer Jeff Smith, Elijah Herbal, and that mustache back at our ESPN studios. Single Barrel inside the Graduate. They are open for you. It's a late tip tonight, Nebraska, Minnesota. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but tonight could be the night for Nebraska basketball. And many of you are playing your Price is Right sound effect in your head. Maybe you're on your way down. It's a drastic difference in attendance in January, but through the first 16 home games, Nebraska fans, God love you, you were there and through thick and thin, and Nebraska's not won since December 22nd. Jeff Smith will work through the issues with me in Nebraska basketball. Elijah also have some thoughts. You can chime in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Coach J. Smith, and at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbal. And can always email Chris at HailVarsity.com. So we'll talk a little bit about what's ailing Nebraska basketball, the why Saturday, and the what tonight, if it can be finally a conference win. Husker football, dare I say, relegated to Friday night football. Boo on that. Husker baseball, Will Bolt and company, get it going here a week from Friday. And we'll hear from Coach Bolt. Well, Coach Smith, it's good to be with you. Thanks for coming down. There's 250 whiskeys Nebraska fans may need to dive into before the 8 o'clock tip-off tonight. There's steaks. There's a big old butcher's board.
Peanut butter whiskey.
Peanut butter. You want a screwball?
I might.
Okay.
Might take a shot before the game.
You might need to limber up. We've already made Elijah upset. He just got the hell out of here. Oh, my God. They're talking whiskey and basketball.
Hey, I heard baseball sold out, by the way.
Yes, they did. Their reserve seating.
We got something to be excited about then, don't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and Will Bolt is he holds his guys accountable. And let's just dive into this buffet of misery with Nebraska
if you're
basketball.
Ready.
Well, you tell me, man. What do you see? And let's talk about the why. And listen, it's been a rough week for Fred. It's been a rough week for the kids. They have a chance to do something about that tonight. I think the Gophers are favored by, 1.5 points tonight. Still, they're favored on the road. So we'll get there. Mike Babcock in 20 minutes. Talk some Husker baseball and some Husker hoops. Mike Schuey will talk golf with us and no doubt have a take or two on Husker basketball. And then the pride of Ord, Andy Markowski, will join us. We are streaming live on ESPN Facebook, ESPN Lincoln Facebook, ESPN Twitter is also where you can watch us if your eyes can take it. Elijah, what do we do? You got up and you took off.
Feverishly before the show started to make sure that we had Coach Bolt's audio for later in the show from his press conference earlier, and I had a tickle in my throat. I just needed a glass of water in the worst way. So I'd get that done while you and Jeff were doing your thing. I could sneak out for 60 seconds and be right back.
So you're doing water. Coach wants a screwball. It might be a Tito's night for me. We'll see how it goes. But Coach Smith, let's just kind of talk about the nitty-gritty. Saturday happened. The aftermath of Saturday has continued to happen, from coaches' show phone calls to social media to angry fans to probably not a great crowd tonight despite the weather and getting out for a February BTN game.
Yeah, I kind of wonder. It seemed like we lost the fan base after the last one. I mean, you could tell by the radio show.
It had been teetering.
It had been on the, yeah. And I want to ask Elijah, did you have any feel from students? Do you think the students have totally given up? Are they just coming for a social aspect and see a little basketball, see the opponent, or are they going to give this team a chance and come back and get a little loud? And I personally feel like tonight, I'm optimistic about tonight. I'm an optimistic person, but if I look at matchups, and they're strong at guard heavy, and so are we. I think we have a chance tonight. But how about the students, Elijah? Do you have a feel for that at all?
There's obviously the students that just need something to go do on a Wednesday night, and they're going to go show up. But it's not going to be the students that come out in numbers that actually care. I mean, I remember back to my freshman year of college where a lot of these conference games, you'd be getting that entire section behind the hoop filled up with students, and now you're lucky to get 15, 20 students behind that hoop. They can fill it behind the benches probably, and those are the fans that are down-home Nebraska boys that just love watching the Huskers. They always show up for football games, always show up for basketball games. They want something to do on a Wednesday night. But the general student populace, I don't think cares all that much. We'll see how baseball season comes out. But it's just been one of those years that coming back from COVID, the Husker football team wasn't that great. Now the basketball team isn't that great. It just doesn't feel like there's that much interest in the athletics department as a whole from the students this year.
You know it's over, and I'm not suggesting this is going to happen or has happened, but if it's a dry tuba section tonight with the Nebraska band, I'm tested positive for COVID. Can't be there. It's over. But that's the question: is the fan base gone? And tonight may be the biggest game in the Hoiberg era, and that's hyperbole to some, and it's a reality to others because you don't win tonight, you probably ain't going to win the rest of the year. You're at Iowa. You have Maryland. You're at Northwestern. You have Iowa at home. I know Ohio State got rescheduled. That's another roadie to Columbus. They're top 20 good. They're a 5 or 6 seed. So between the matchups, fellas, it's not good. Your team's not physical. They don't match up well. They don't play well together. They don't do the little things. They're not real interested in boxing out or taking care of the basketball, even in close games against some tournament teams, and then to just kind of roll over and keep getting kicked against Northwestern when it comes to the perimeter defense or letting the offense affect your defense. I just, for the life of me, the hardest thing to watch is a team not respond to their coach, and the hardest thing to see is a coach not be heard by his kids. And that's what it's looked like more than once this year.
Yeah, as a coaching staff, high school, college, the coaching staffs that I was part of, the biggest thing, especially after losses, first thing you question yourself, did we play hard? And then was it a collective effort that our whole team played hard? And then was it, how was our scouting report? Did we push the right buttons on our scouting report? And are we playing the right kids? Was another early question you ask after a loss or two in a row. And I always pulled stats of the top 10 teams. Mm-hmm. I would want to know, because kids can fluff their stats against the bottom teams, especially high school level, but even college level. Coach Nee would also, we would pull stats. If we played top 40 team, maybe the top 40, in those games, what did he do against the top 40 teams or top 25 teams? Because that tells you a lot. Tonight is actually a chance to change the lineup if you want to. They don't have a power four-man that's good, a rebounding animal at the 4. They play Battle, who's 6'7", more of a 3. You could, if you wanted to, you could take Lat Mayan out of the lineup. You could insert C.J. Wilcher, who's our best three-point shooter, probably big enough to guard a 3 or 4 in this game. And their top 2 scorers are Battle and Peyton Willis, guards, 6'7" and 6'4", and Iowa kind of attacked those guys. Battle played poorly against Iowa. Now, was that a one-game thing, or is he going into a little slump? Let's hope. But I honestly, tonight, I would consider playing a triangle and 2 for part of the game and guard those 2 guards, try to take their top 2 scorers out of it and see if somebody else can beat you. But this is a game that we do match up, and we match up inside pretty well. You could change your lineup if you wanted to tonight. And, you lose 12 or whatever Big Ten games in a row. I'm changing my lineup, and I know Coach Hoiberg.
Something.
Yeah, and I'll try a triangle and 2. Coach Hoiberg is, I still think he's a great coach. And, I really do I think if he stays around, I think he'll get there. I think he's got too much pride and too much intelligence, too much experience, knowledge not to. But tonight is a chance to make some changes, and I would change some things tonight and see if I could shake it up a little bit.
Well, and you just laid out how a successful and Hall of Fame coach attacked the problem, the issue of a loss or a couple of losses in a row, and you did self-inventory. You yourself looked in the mirror, you looked at the prep, you looked at, did I put the kids in the best position to better? And then hopefully your team does that as well. I have no doubt that Fred's looking in the mirror and probably sleepless, honestly, trying to get things figured out. I know there's some guys on his staff that are the same way, that this is killing them.
Yeah,
there's some real competitors on his staff, and I think there's maybe a handful of guys on the team that this is just wearing out. I think C.J. Wiltshire and the McGowans, this is probably wearing Derek Walker out as well. And then there's some guys that are they're just here. They're just here. They're just kind of biding their time, whether it's an NBA tryout, or lottery pick, or it's a contract in Europe, or maybe it's I'm going to transfer to a 48th different school, whatever. I mean, that is an issue, and role acceptance was uttered a lot before the season as probably a storm cloud or two that was out there that's been a reality. And I think this staff and this head coach thought they had a better team than they really did. You need to really take a look at just your roster construction and acquisition, because you've been off. You have been off more times than not with the kids you're bringing in. Not just does their talent play at the Division I level in a Power 5 league. No, a lot of it hasn't translated to what type of teammates am I bringing in.
Yeah.
And I think you've got, above all, you've got chemistry issues, and then you compound losing and then blowing out, and then there's just some kids don't have the fight. They're like, screw it, I'm out. Is this thing over yet?
Yeah. I text former assistants or guys I worked with a lot during games and stuff, and this last one, we were texting that, Coach Hoiberg said we can't practice tomorrow because we have to have day off. I said, what about tonight, after the game? We'll see you at the Hendricks boys. Or go watch film right after the game and send a little message that this isn't acceptable. I'm sure they've done some things like that and probably don't make that public.
Sure.
I'm sure their pride's hurt. They're desperate. But, something like that sometimes get their attention that, I know I didn't ever get off the bus and tell them to go get their practice gear on a road game. We were tempted a few times, but at the high school level we didn't do that. But I know coaches that have done that.
Did Danny?
No, we had meetings. We had some long meetings in the ready room when we got home sometimes, but we didn't ever go on the floor. But there weren't as many mandatory days off, so next day might be a little brutal. That'd be hard to wait 48 hours to get your message across.
And you could hear that in his voice. Just real quick here, we'll get to Babbers in a moment. What's your reaction been to the fan outrage between radio shows and social media?
I think it's a buildup of football, basketball, a few years, here combined.
Yeah.
We all had our hopes extremely high. We're thinking, Coach Frost, Coach Hoiberg, how'd we get him? I remember 3 years ago sitting at home thinking, okay, we might not be good the first few years, but 3 years. Give me just 3 years. I want to see what it's like. Well, not a whole lot's changed. I'm not sure we've gotten better.
No,
and especially in basketball now.
You're worse than you were with Timmy.
Yeah,
here.
You are. And you were talking about chemistry and things. I know I was listening to Matt Painter in an interview, and I'm sure Nebraska is. I wanted to call in Coach Hoiberg and ask him, do they do any kind of personality-type test? I know Purdue does. He talked about it. Because a couple of their kids he said they wouldn't have taken, but their personality, their indicators from this company that's pretty expensive, I think, indicated that they would fit in perfectly to their team and to Coach Painter's personality. And I'd love to know if Nebraska, and we seem to be cutting edge on a lot of things, with the monitors we wear and all that stuff. So I would assume they do, but I think that's important, that chemistry, that character, that, and especially here at Nebraska where people expect that in the Midwest. That's got to be a factor. You may lose, but you're not going to quit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's an idea. I mean, psych eval, right?
Hey, you're putting your career in their hands. You're putting your fan base in their hands. Those are big decisions when you're taking guys. You got to do your homework, and I'm sure they are. But I hope they are, because they've got to get some better fits, I think, to Coach Hoiberg and Nebraska in general.
But it doesn't feel like they are.
No, it doesn't. You're right.
Going down the same road.
That's why I'm questioning that.
You're going down the same road, reaching for, okay, we're going to win. We're going to out-talent you with all we bring in. But and there's 3 guys that come to mind the past 3 years that have been, I think, locker room issues or too alpha for the rest of the crew, and it just didn't flow together. Down here at the Single Barrel Road Show Wednesday, real red tip-off going on. Come grab a steak and a beer before Nebraska, Minnesota, or just have a steak and a beer and watch Nebraska, Minnesota. Elijah Hurrdat back at our ESPN Lincoln studios. Chris Schmidt, the Hall of Fame coach. Jeff Smith, Single Barrel, inside the graduate. We roll forward here. Mike Babcock next on Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Hello, listener. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And we're back.
Fellas, you think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Thanks for hanging out. Road Show Wednesday down here at the Single Barrel, Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. We're inside the graduate. The Single Barrel is incredible. The thickest of thick steaks, the pork chops they have here. It's got a little peanut butter giddy up to it.
I'll go with my peanut butter whiskey.
They'll go with Coach Smith's screwball. Jeff Smith.
Did you tell
here.
him about the butcher block we ate after the last show?
I've bragged about it. I told Elijah about it.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I'd rather not hear about it, to be honest with you. As I'm chained up in the studio down
here. It was 2 steaks. It was ribs. It was brisket. It was bread.
And a couple of hamburgers too.
Yeah, two burgers, and then what did we have? We had that sauce, béarnaise.
Yes,
béarnaise.
Yes, sauce. It was all meat. It was like an all meat diet.
It was wonderful.
Pure protein.
Next time we're going to invite Babbers down. Mike Babcock with us from HailVarsity.com and magazine at MD Babs on Twitter. Babbers, can we interest you in some ribs and some steak tonight?
Yeah, I'm sitting here listening to you guys talk about all this good food, and I'm sitting here looking at a computer screen. Now, that's not fair.
Well, bring the computer screen on down here to the Single Barrel. We'll make it happen, Babbers.
They talk about basketball, and you got Coach Smith there, and you're going to have Andy Markowski on after that. What am I supposed to say?
You're supposed to tell. No. Whatever you want to say, Babbers. I mean, we'll get to basketball in a minute. I want to get your thought on. Say it with me, Friday Night Football. Yeehaw. Rutgers, Nebraska. What the heck?
Yeah, well, TV.
I know.
Show me the money.
No, I know. You know what it says to me? It says to me, and I have it written down here, from a schedule standpoint, you have Michigan State, Ohio State. You have Michigan, Indiana. You have Illinois, Iowa that week. I mean, it's like, okay, even if there's a Big Ten triple header with an ABC and an FS1 or a Fox Sports game, Nebraska, we got no spot for you. How's Friday sound?
Yeah, how's Friday sound? How does? And the thing I don't like about it, the bottom line is that's high school football night.
Yep.
And let people go watch high school football. Don't put Nebraska on television on a Friday night. Don't have Nebraska playing. I want Friday night. Don't take over Friday night from high schools.
Amen. That's Southeast, Southwest, too. So,
yeah.
So selfishly. But no, I just Nebraska will have a short week for Rutgers and Schiano after the Indiana game. So you got to deal with it. You're already going to mess with a week 2 ball game right after Ireland. So while the schedule is air quote more manageable, it's a little funky, Mike.
Yeah. Yep. Nothing is the same anymore. And again, television makes the call, and you do what you're told to do.
Mike, let's switch gears. A thought on Husker baseball. Will Bolt met the media today. And what was a couple of your takeaways here with Bolt? And the goal, of course, being let's get to a regional, not only get back to a regional, but host a regional.
Well, last year the theme was gritty beats pretty, and I think that's probably the same thing. One of the things I took away, I was really interested to hear that Colby Gomez is going to be back at full strength, it sounds like. And, that's a big thing if that's the case. He was a freshman All-American in 2019, then he had the arm problems. He was rehabbing from one problem and had problems rehabbing and missed all of last season. But it sounds like from what Coach Bolt said, he's going to be back, and maybe he's going to be the guy that steps into that closer role that opened up when Schwellenbach left. So I think that was a big thing. We're going to see some new faces. There's no question about that, because there are a lot of young guys, and people are going to have to step up and fill holes. But I think there's reason for optimism, obviously, and you see the fans feel that way because they want some men's sport to be successful. Sell out all the reserve seats before the season begins. I think that's a good sign. Passionate fan base. All the things that you look at seem to be pointing in a positive direction. And Nebraska, I think, plays its first 11 or 12 games in Texas. So you're going to get those games under your belt, have an opportunity to see what guys are going to step up and how your orders are going to look.
Mike, can we put words on just how much of an advantage it has been with the weather for Nebraska baseball to be outdoors? They're a week out from going down to Texas and taking on some squads, but to be able to be outdoors because of the weather, man, it really cuts down on that feel, doesn't it? To handle a grounder or, just be in baseball weather, for lack of a better term.
Oh yeah, no question. And as Coach Bolt said, that this is another thing I think is a positive. He said, they really felt like they're hitting with some power. And, when you're inside, it's kind of difficult to gauge that because you don't know how those things are going. But you get outside and you have that opportunity. And it gives you an opportunity with your outfielders. They're there looking at the sky and all the things that you don't have when you're working out inside, the opportunity to do some of those things. So I think it's huge, a huge advantage for Nebraska to have been able to do that. To continue to do that. I guess they're going to scrimmage again. Being able to do that outside, there are just so many things that you wouldn't be able to do if you were stuck inside. And this has to be a one of a kind situation. I can't remember ever when there's been this much warm weather for them to do these things.
Mike, Coach Bolt said in the presser today that he thinks the goal for this team this year should be to host a regional. But with all the veteran leadership that departed the team last offseason, when you look at Schwellenbach, you look at Hallmark, you look at Povich, just so many guys that were so instrumental to that team last year leaving. Do you think hosting a regional this year is still an attainable goal, or is postseason still just going to be fine even if they don't host?
Well, I think it's an attainable goal. Yeah, I do, because in part because of the potential for success, in part because you've got a great facility. I think Nebraska has an opportunity to do that. Yeah, now are people going to have to step up? Maybe names that we don't know right now. There's no question about that. But I think you've got some guys to build around. Obviously, Max Anderson is a really talented player. I think Bryce Matthews is going to be a special player by the time he finishes. Cam Chick has some experience. Jack Stiles can play some first base, and Kyle Perry, I think, is in a position where he can step in there. Shanahan was a starter last year in the starting rotation weekend, so you've got some guys to build around. Everett, catcher, experience, has a good relationship with the pitching staff. I think you can build around those guys if you get some good leadership, and I think you're going to have that because it's a reflection of the coaching staff. And the addition of Rob Childress to the staff, even though he can't be coaching on the field or anything, I think that's a big thing for Nebraska as well. So I just think that there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and you put them together, and it looks like you have the potential to host a regional.
Mike Babcock's with his Babbers. Got a couple of minutes left. A thought here, a fun story as we remember John Sanders. He lived up and around the corner from me in a cul-de-sac. Just remember him just being in the neighborhood a few times, a few 4th of Julys. Awesome man. I know you really enjoyed covering him. Yeah.
I was a big John Sanders person. I was sad to see when he was dismissed by Nebraska, and not taking anything away. Dave Van Horn did some remarkable things, certainly, but I was a big John Sanders guy. He's an intense competitor. There's no question about that. And I always remember there was a little bit of chew always on his uniform when the game got over with. But intensity was what he was about, and that. For a good share of the time, I think we mentioned this before, but Oklahoma State just dominated the Big Eight at the time.
Oh yeah.
It was just a difficult time, and the structure of the College World Series was a little bit different. Regionals were different. So he got there 3 times, but he didn't get there from '85 until they got rid of him. So that was a very sad to hear about Coach Sanders passing.
Babbers, a thought before we say goodbye. Does Nebraska and Fred Hoiberg get it done? What does the Babbers crystal ball say?
I think they'll get it done tonight, and I'm terrible about predicting those things, so there you go. But I think they'll get it done against Minnesota. I think they might get it done in a couple of games down the stretch. If they can just keep it together and keep focus and try for the full game, for the full 40 minutes. Have your best game on the floor for 40 minutes instead of just backing off and letting things go during a stretch or two, and that's what's happened, it seems like.
Well, we've talked a lot this week about Nebraska basketball, where the fan base is at. Do you think it's beyond teetered, it's tipped over and left, or do you think there's still do you think there's still some fans out there that are going to stick with them?
There are some that will stick with them, yeah. But I think that you see the attendance at the arena is not what it should be, and that's disappointing. I don't like what happened with the radio show. I don't like that kind of stuff. I think it's probably something they wouldn't say if he was in person. It's easy to say over the phone or whatever. But I still think that Fred Hoiberg, like Coach Smith said, I still think he can get it done if he sticks around here.
Mike Babcock with us. Find Mike on Twitter at MDBabs. Read him with HailVarsity.com and, of course, Hail Varsity Magazine. Babbers, we'll talk next week. Thanks so much for a few minutes today, bud.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy that food down there.
We will send you a pic, and we'll save you a seat. There we go. Good stuff from Mike Babcock. down here at the Single Barrel Roadshow Wednesday with Hail Varsity Radio. Single Barrel, get yourself a steak, a pork chop, a burger, something cold to drink. And if you're headed down to Nebraska, Minnesota, come by, say hi. We'll switch to some golf. Mike Schuhart, Wilderness Ridge on the way with Hail Varsity.
Hello, listener. This is Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, the coach, Jeff Smith, Hall of Famer, Nebraska and Lincoln Southeast. We're here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate, so if you're making plans for dinner tonight, think about the Single Barrel. Incredible menu. The pork chops are dynamite. The butcher's block, I will say, experienced last time with 2 different steaks, burgers, brisket, some incredible dry rub ribs, the béarnaise sauce, the bread.
It was all amazing.
It was incredible. I mean, I'm kind of gearing up to be hungry here in 2 seconds. 250 whiskeys to choose from. If you're a rare whiskey guy, they've got it. If you're a beer guy, they've got it. Or gal, they have it. We will effort here, Mike Schuhart, who we're working on Shuey from Wilderness Ridge. Shuey was on the road a couple of weeks ago in Orlando at a PGA showcase event. No, Elijah, jump on the mic.
Still no.
Tick off Shuey again.
Still no Mike Schuhart. I don't know what's up.
He's given a late lesson. Hey, you asked a question about fans to Mr. Babcock and myself too. I think Nebraska fans at the least want to see effort. And I just think, I think this last game just kind of put them over the top, that they just didn't feel like that's typical effort of kids that represent our university. And we built this team up quite a bit. I think that's kind of the problem with today too, with social media. It's too easy to build and other people to build up. They were already comparing this team to the best team ever in Nebraska without even playing a game. And
based on paper.
To me, I took that kind of personal because we had some pretty good teams. Now, it would have been nice to win some NCAA, and then I would say no way. But, and then you start buying in, and we didn't tell our teams they were good until they proved it. We didn't tell that 26-8 team. We didn't know how good they were until you go in and play some games. How can you? So that's where I think sometimes the buildup of the hype and the publicity and the university builds things up too, because they want fans, they want excitement, and of course they do. Their marketing department's fantastic, but do we over-market sometimes and over-hype, and then fan expectations get so high? Well, of course we're let down. Then if we don't play hard, that's where I think the boiling point hit this week.
That is the dagger. Are you going to play hard or not? And it's never, ever, you can get beat and blown out and out-talented, but Nebraska fans can tell and watch if it's an effort thing or a talent difference thing. And Nebraska's as talented as Northwestern. They're as talented as Minnesota. They're right there against Rutgers. I mean, on a given night, it can go magical, and you can be within a 3-pointer of a team that's leading the Big Ten in Illinois, or
right?
Has led, and we were at that game. So the effort's there, but it should the one constant you should have always as a player, as a competitor, whatever you do, is to bring it to the best of your ability. And I know there are ups and downs, peaks and valleys, emotionally or physically. I get that you can't be on 100 all the time, but as far as the will to, that willpower to push through and keep swinging, even if you're getting your butt kicked, is not negotiable, and it's been with this team, and that's why you're going to see 5 and change tonight, potentially.
Yeah, and some of that's a focus, too. You can see when they screw up a switch, that it's an easy switch, and they give up a wide-open 3. That's a focus thing, that you're not focused and communicating, and those mistakes this time of year are unacceptable.
Well, you just don't care. Because it was between – how many times on that stupid pick and roll, the high pick and roll, you were getting killed going under the ball screen or not fighting through the screen.
Or pick and pop, you don't switch it, and they just throw it back for a wide-open look.
And you've got Lat and Verge up there that have been easy targets this year for fans, but they kind of look at each other and, oh, well.
Yeah.
And that's what – yeah, that's what's setting the fans off.
Something else, because I like to think, well, what could we do? What can Nebraska do? And I would be tempted, and again, it's easy sitting here and instead of the big chair, but I would be tempted to say we're not switching tonight. You're assigned to Peyton Willis, and I want you to guard Peyton Willis tonight. You fight through screens. We're not switching. You're responsible for that. Yeah. Now, yes, you have to help when you're on help side and all that, but sometimes we over switch, and then they're posting Tamanaga, they're posting, some Walker, and that's starting to hurt us a little bit too.
Nice
Webster, excuse me.
Nice kid in Tamanaga, but just absolutely a misidentification.
Yeah,
big time misidentification, and he can hit a 3 here or there. But from a composure standpoint and just an ability.
Yeah, he plays hard at times, but it just comes down to an ability. And we're just not talented enough right now. And losing Breidenbach, like we were talking about off air, at that 4 spot, that hurts us because really, I was hoping Lat would be coming off the bench trying to contribute, maybe at a 3-4, because he's not a pure 4, obviously rebounding-wise is one of his weaknesses. And I think Wilhelm was competitive enough that he would.
Coach Beard liked to hit people.
Yeah.
Breidenbach liked to get physical.
Yeah. So that I think that was a big loss too. But that happens. People get hurt. We lose people for the season, and that happens. And we just haven't done well at that 4 spot, I don't think. And then of course, point guard's a tough one. We probably need a little more of a distributor at times. And I'm not saying Verge can't do some good things because he does have some talent, but we've always had scoring point guards here with Cam Mack and those guys. And it'd be nice to have a point guard that is a little more of a floor general, a little more of a distributor first, and then maybe, can score when you need him to.
A guy who is truly selfless. I don't think there's any guys on this team that are truly selfless. There's guys that aren't necessarily selfish. But when I watch this team play, I don't see a guy who doesn't care about the box score, doesn't care, only cares about the win. There's not guys like that. And that's the problem with this team is they have more talent than being winless in the Big Ten. I'm not saying that they have enough talent to go compete to be in the top half of the Big Ten, but they have a lot more talent than a team that is currently winless in the Big Ten. It comes down to the guys not wanting to win enough. It's the guys not doing the things they need to do to win. And I'm not sure if that comes from the coaching. I'm not sure if it's just the guys here aren't right. Something is completely wrong, but it just, whenever you watch these games, this does not look like a team that truly, truly cares about winning.
Yeah, I agree. You watch Michigan for the first 3 quarters of that game. You watch Rutgers, and you sit there and say, we're playing hard. This team can play with people. Now, I don't know if they have the belief to finish a game right now. That might be a problem. But there is enough talent to win some of these games, especially home games. You got to protect your home court. You've got to win some. Tonight's huge in my book. It's just a huge game.
It goes back to your player personnel, your talent evaluation, and then the psyche and mental makeup. What's your personality? What personality are you bringing into the locker room?
I wanted to go copy off the Ted Lasso Believe signs and go hand it out around the court to all the Jack Nicholson seats. And okay, when it's crunch time, all of you stand up and hold your Believe signs out so these guys can see them. And they got to look each other in their eye, and they got to make plays together. Defensive end first, and then offensive end executing.
We'll wind down this first hour here at the Single Barrel Roadshow Wednesday. Real Red Tip-Off. Coach Jeff Smith, the Hall of Famer, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time here this first hour, Single Barrel, where we're at Real Red Tip-Off, Hail Varsity Radio, the Hall of Fame coach Jeff Smith, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal back at our ESPN studios. We'll hear from Coach Will Bolt and his presser today around 5:25. We'll try and get caught up with Shuey another time. He's probably either putting for dough or doing a lesson out at Wilderness Ridge, so we appreciate his time. But this is good news. ESPN, their networks, and the streaming platform has committed to cover more than 200 games across the networks with an additional 2,000 games on their digital platform. The TV lineup's going to have a lot of top 25 setups. And remember back in the day, the Jabba years, man, and we'll get Jabba on for some of our baseball coverage this year with Nebraska. But remember, like it was yesterday, where big ESPN would have, this was back in the Big 12, but they were always really good about televising Nebraska, Texas. And I remember that game at Haymarket, as I was like, hey, dear, can I go watch Nebraska baseball? She's like, no, it's Friday night. You're taking me to dinner. So I picked a restaurant that was so slammed that we had to sit in the bar for a while, and I had to watch the first few innings of Nebraska baseball as Jabba was going to work on Bevo. That was really cool. But, man, that brings back memories. BTN always does a good job of obviously covering Nebraska baseball, but Coach Bolt's going to do it the right way, has done it the right way, and really excited. And you get some guys to develop into, just a killer weekend rotation. Could be really nice. We'll hear more from Will Bolt coming up. Elijah, what's your umpire schedule and look like, man? Where are you at here?
All around Lincoln. So the class, well, they use Sherman Field less than they used to. There was a whole issue with the high schools in Sherman not reaching an agreement for playing games out there. So there's a lot of games at Dinsmore this year, which is a brutal drive from here at the station.
You just have.
I think they're playing more at Hartog since they put turf on that, artificial turf on that too.
So I'm all over.
Sherman's a classic though, man.
It is.
It is. But I don't know. It seems weird after all that money they put into it. About 10 years ago now. To renovate it, get it looking nice, and now the high school's going out to Dinsmore, which just does not have the same feel to it. Worse seating arrangements out there, but it all comes down to money, and I guess this is more economical for the high schools to go to work out there. Before we get out of here, one similar thing to what you just said about ESPN and their announcement with college baseball, they've also announced they're extending the Manning cast for another year till 2024, yes. And they're going to have similar style productions for college football, golf, and UFC. Similar Manning cast style productions, not necessarily with the Mannings, but
so it's more of a talk show while a game's going on.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what the ratings difference were between the Manning cast and the regular cast, because everybody I talked to, they didn't watch the regular one anymore.
Well, it depended if your team was in the game. The Manning cast wasn't it, because then they were just talking about some of the other random things not compared to the games. But like whenever it's two teams I didn't care about, I was turning on the Manning cast 10 times out of 10. They made it fun.
Yep.
They're pretty good, and Peyton loves to be Peyton on camera, and Eli needs to do a series of 80s concert T-shirts. Forget this collared shirt. Eli's a tank top and Def Leppard guy. And
we need a Michael Jordan, Karl Malone cast on NBA games.
Wow.
Or something.
Yeah. Give me Rodman. give me Rodman.
Rodman and Jordan.
That'd be all right. Rodman and Pippen. No one would speak. Hour 2 coming up. Andy Markowski on the way. Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity. HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back with you. It's hour 2 on the road today. A road show Wednesday here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate, heading down to Nebraska, Minnesota. They have 250 whiskeys to choose from. You may need it tonight in celebration. Tonight could be the night as the Huskers and Gophers set to go on BTN. We welcome in standout Husker and assistant over at Pius, Andy Markowski, with us at Markowski_Andy on Twitter. Andy, what do you know? How's the week been? Thanks for the time.
Yeah, going fast. The women had a kind of run of games. Pius played last night. Looking forward to seeing if the men can represent a little bit better than they did on Alumni Saturday.
Yeah, I want to go to Saturday. Forgive me on that, but you're a proud alum, part of many tournament teams at Nebraska, and were you on hand for Saturday? Let me ask you that first.
Yeah, I was. I was like the majority of the fans, though. I could not sit and watch the finish, so I made it to the under 8-minute timeout, and just my son and I had to exit gracefully, and like most fans were, just disappointed in their effort against a team that certainly by record and standing in the league they should certainly be competitive with at home.
How many games have you left early in your lifetime, going from player now to fan and supporter of the program? Have you left early many times?
It's not a lot, unless you're trying to race out to catch something. Normally I'm at an athletic event to see the conclusion, right? I mean, that's why people should go, and they keep score for a reason, right? You want to see the outcome of the game, but like I said, it was just disappointing on a lot of levels, and I can't fault for the fans for checking out a little early on just the overall effort of the team.
So the next question: were you surprised with what transpired? We've seen efforts like that before. But you'd think it'd get out of the players' system, and Fred's taken so many. People are out of arrows around Lincoln and Omaha and around the state that love Nebraska basketball. Fred has been beaten like a piñata this week on social media, on his own radio show. Press is questioning a lot of things, and it's already been a tough season, but that was kind of a new low, and you thought you'd said that or seen that already this year. Do you have, from a coaching and a playing standpoint perspective, a reason or an answer as to why Saturday happened?
Well, that was my concern, a month ago when they weren't playing very well. I get it. It's a grind. It's long. You have to win. There has to be optimism. You as a coach, you need to get kids to buy in, right? So when you're telling them that, hey, if we play this way, it gives us the best chance to win. And then when you don't win, right, that's kind of a compounding feeling. And my fear was if they don't start winning, are they, all of them, coaches, head coaches, players, vested enough in Nebraska and, hey, we're going to lay a foundation for the future. This is going to be a rough year, but we get everybody back next year. I mean, there's always got to be something that you're hanging your hat on. And my fear with this group is that they're not as invested as maybe what they should be. Maybe, they have one foot out the door where they're just going to be here a year and the in on their chest doesn't mean as much as maybe it means to some other kids or other years or other athletes in other sports. And when you lose, that stuff makes it easier to just kind of check out. Is it the season over yet? We have a month left. They start to count down the games, and Saturday, hopefully it's not a precursor to what the next, 4, 5, 6 games are going to look like. But certainly up to that point, they had been more competitive, especially at home. And they've been outmatched in a few games by really good teams. I mean, you play Auburn and Purdue, and, that's the tip of the spear. I mean, those teams are going to compete for national titles, and to get blew out by them, it's not, you're not happy about it, but you understand it. I mean, to get embarrassed at home to Northwestern, my question is, do people have a foot out the door? And, I think you're going to know more, if that's the case tonight.
Andy Markowski's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Husker basketball standout and assistant at Pius, proud alum. Looking forward to Nebraska, Minnesota. We'll get there in a minute. As you look at Fred's system, that's been questioned, his style. To me, Fred knows offense. Fred's proven that, either be it a playoff run or a NCAA tournament run. With what he wants to do offensively, is it sound? And, I mean, it comes down to coaching and execution, meshing, obviously. But to me, with Fred's system, it can work, and we've seen it work in spurts. But I don't know that it gets executed or guys avoid the temptation to go rogue. They don't pass that chance up as often as maybe they should. What's your take on Fred's system and offense? I mean, do you think it should be working, but do you think it can work now in college ball compared to when he was last in college basketball?
Yeah, and he's changed a lot. I don't buy into that Fred doesn't understand the game or the college game has passed him up. I think some of that's a little irresponsible in terms of reporting. I mean, that staff knows basketball now. Do they have the right pieces, right? Do they have the right point guard that can help run it? Do they have enough size to compete in the Big Ten? Are they, getting a basket's hard in college basketball if your players aren't as good or as tough or as strong as the team that you're playing against. And I think the biggest surprise I had was I thought maybe they're a little more talented than they are. Certainly their lack of physicality has really shown itself. Walker probably needs to be a 4. He's a 5. McGowan's is 170 pounds. I mean, Verge is 160 pounds. Like the level of kid that they have recruited, in certain Big Ten games have just been physically dominated and loose balls and 50-50 and rebounding. And, you look at all those stats, effort can come into question a little bit, but I just think how the physicality of the roster that was built isn't probably built to win in the Big Ten. Now it goes back to, the staff, and Coach Hoiberg is responsible for that. I mean, you're paid $5 million to recruit and recruit the right type of kid that can, run your system and win in a conference. There should be no surprises what it takes to win in the Big Ten. And, I think there's a disconnect with all of that. But to sit there and say that, Coach Hoiberg or his staff or Doc Sadler, that none of them know basketball or the game has passed them out or passed them by, I don't believe that. But their ability to relate to this team and get this team to play the way they need to play to win and or recruit the right players to win the Big Ten, that can come into question because this is year 3, and they don't appear to me that they haven't quite figured out on what type of kids they need to physically win in what is a very physical, well-coached, hard to win on the road, 20-game conference season. Those aren't easy things to do, and you have to have the right mindset as an athlete, and it's their job to recruit that kid into the program to be successful. And, as of year 3, they have not done that.
Andy Markowski's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Andy, they've tried to adjust, I would assume, in Big Ten play each year they've been in league. And the kids they've gone after have been portal guys. I mean, they've been and loaded up with a lot of guys that have been to a school or two. And then you accumulate the 5-star in Bryce. that is uber talented, but you shouldn't rely even as many times as you've seen it in college basketball, that 5-star that comes in and raises the program level. It's still a really tough ask, specifically in this league where it's the Michigan States and Wisconsins and Purdue's that reload, but they've always got somebody waiting in the wings that have been in their program for a year or two before they're asked to be the star. There's just a disconnect. I think you nailed it. And does that change tonight? How are you feeling about Nebraska, Minnesota? I know the Gophers do wonderful work taking care of the basketball. They're good at three-point shooting. They're also good at defending the three. That's kind of their setup, despite not a great offense. What happens tonight? What do you think needs to happen tonight for Nebraska?
Well, I look at Minnesota, and and this is the question I think a lot of fans have, and the frustration. Ben Johnson, this is his first year. He took 6 or 7 transfers out of the portal, and has built a competitive team. I think they're right at 500, but right now Nebraska fans would take that. I mean, they've been competitive. Night in and night out, they appear to care and play hard. The amount of blowouts that Minnesota has had is very few. So you look at Coach Hoiberg and the staff that did it the same way, right, through the portal and a lot of transfers. Why hasn't it worked for them? And yet Ben Johnson in year one has more competitive team, and I think that's why the arrows are flying at Coach Hoiberg a little bit. Is there's not a lot of answers to those questions. So I think we're going to learn a lot, tonight. If I was a betting man, I wouldn't I wouldn't bet. I have no idea where this Nebraska team is at mentally. Once again, I thought post-Christmas they have been better. Shot selection has been better. Accountability has been better from the coaching staff to the player on what he needed them to do to be successful. And then the post-game quotes is that they just gave poor effort and weren't ready to play. And I just don't know how that happens as an athlete. If I'm playing, dice or Monopoly or, Uno with my kids, I'm playing to win. And, you're in a college game on a Saturday afternoon, on alumni weekend, and when you fail to show up, that tells me that they're not ready or they want the year to go away. And, tonight, we'll learn more, but my guess is, you're going to see a team that's going to struggle to win at home against a, marginally talented Minnesota team.
Andy, is it too late to change your personality as a coach or as an assistant? I mean, I'm not at practices, but can you get on kids like you need to get them to care? I mean, that's supposed to be like baseline, isn't it? I mean, is there a concern about, from a personality standpoint, guys not being able to be coached hard on this squad?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's hard to come midstream and really, once losing starts to come in play, hold them to a standard that maybe you didn't hold them to in August. I don't want to use a gun analogy. I don't want to offend anybody, but I was always taught, you only have 5 or 6 bullets in your gun to fire at a team, because it reaches a point where they're just not going to respond. When you implode, you blow up, throw stuff, break a clipboard, kick them out of the locker room. There's only so many things coaches can do. And if Fred hasn't fired all those bullets by now, I don't know what he's waiting for, right? Because this team has been a disappointment from the start. So I don't believe there's much they can do from a, let's get harder. The bench is what it is, right? It's been depleted a little bit with some injury. So, sitting a kid down and take playing time from him, still the best motivator you have as a coach. They lack depth to now do that. So I think you are who you are, Chris. If the kids want to be there, if they want to compete, if they want to represent, for the university and for their teammates, tonight would be a great start for that. If not, I think you have to start inventorying what kids you want around your program that are here for the right reasons and are going to represent Nebraska in the right way. And that's just go out and compete and play hard for each other. I don't think our fans are asking this to be an Elite Eight team. They just want a product on the court that they can, that mirrors kind of the image of Nebraska people, which are hardworking, play together, be connected. And this group just hasn't been able to do that.
Andy, last thought, bud. Is this as bad and mad as you've seen the men's fan base towards Nebraska basketball?
Well, I think it's the new normal, Chris. I think Coach Hoiberg cares. I don't think he needs to be told on his radio show that he should be fired. I think there's a Twitter sensation to humanity that probably needs to slow down a little bit. I think he's aware that people are upset and disappointed, and I think the media is doing a good job of capturing that sentiment. So I was a little as a former player, and some of that hurts when the program loses. I don't think anybody needs to hear that. But yeah, I think people are, the expectation level got higher than it's been, and this team has performed well under that. And I think when that happens, on top of the football team struggling, there's just been a lot of compounding, factors. And, when you pay somebody millions and millions of dollars, you're going to expect a return on that investment. And, as of year 3, Coach Hoiberg and the staff just haven't been able to deliver a product that makes Nebraskans proud.
Eddie, have a good week. Thanks for your time and your candor, bud. We'll catch up soon and take care. Thanks for the time, bud.
All right. Thanks, Smitty.
Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@hailvarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Single Barrel, where we're at here. Real Red tip-off ahead of Nebraska, Minnesota. Later ball game tonight, 8 o'clock. The Hall of Fame coach Jeff Smith, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal will get Coach's Super Bowl prediction while we got him before the show ends. Good stuff from Andy Markowski. A lot of basketball today. I know many of you are tapped out, checked out on Husker hoops, but if it's going to happen, tonight's the night. And before we hear from Will Bolt and some Husker baseball coach Smith, some keys, some thoughts tonight here. I know you're always scouting Big Red basketball from your time on the bench next to Coach Nee.
Yes, I will never quit on Nebraska basketball.
God love you.
It's ingrained, but some of these are pretty basic. But it starts with what Andy was talking about, intensity and effort. It's got to be. We have to see that right off the bat. I think it's crucial for our confidence that we get off to a great start the first 5 minutes, put a little doubt in their mind, and gain some confidence early. I think that's huge. I think our transition defense has to be better. We have to get matched to shooters early, and because they shoot the ball well. Their top 3 scorers are guards, and they're the only 3 scorers in double figure. They're their best 3-point shooters. So it's going to be a perimeter defensive effort tonight that's going to win this game.
That scares me.
It does, but you've got to challenge Bryce and you've got to challenge Alonzo, and they have to guard people, and they can't screw up switches. Communication has to be excellent. We have to get matched up, and it starts with transition and getting matched up early. That's going to be huge tonight. We have to be able to guard one-on-one better than we have. We can't give up a lot of penetration and have to rotate and help, and we have to limit those defensive rotations and stay matched up. And that's where I say it'd be nice to just guard. You're guarding him, and stay matched up if we could. Obviously, rebounding's huge. They're a pretty good rebounding team, and we just can't get out-rebounded by 10 or 12 offensive rebounds. It's killing us, and everybody knows that by watching that. And then offensively, I want to see the ball in the air. I don't want to see it pounded all the time. We got to be harder to guard by and you can see when Nebraska passes the ball, they get pretty efficient offensively, because then it creates drives later. And I hope Walker stays involved. We kind of remember that we want to get him the ball because he's shooting 68%. I think that needs to happen tonight too. I think we've got to use timeouts. I think he's got to use timeouts early if he has to. I think he's got to use timeouts in those situations where we're up 6 with with 3 minutes to go and they score, timeout. Okay, this is what we want. You might have to coach this timeout to timeout. And then they'll take some that'll help you too. But you got to tell this team right now, this is what we want right now. If you can't do it, you're off the floor, and you got to find the guys that are going to execute down the stretch. So we match up well, and we got to get to those matchups. I would take those 2 top scorers out of the game. They've made 100 of 150 of their team threes. Those 2 guys. It's
a number.
We're talking Jamison Battle and Peyton Willis, their guard, 2 of their guards. So you've got to take them out of the game, and that's what Iowa did. Battle was like 0 for 10 from the 3-point line because they just didn't let him get open looks. So I think we should look at that game plan and follow that a little bit. And then we could change starters tonight to get better matchups against them. And again, I wouldn't be afraid to play some triangle and 2 or just totally face guard those 2 guards and do the old Tim Floyd face guard trick. And then they shoot 6% better than we do from the 3-point line, 36 compared to 30 as a team. So we've got to take away those threes, and I think we'll have a chance to win the game tonight. But it all comes down to starting with effort and intensity and focus.
Jeff Smith, Hall of Fame coach, Nebraska assistant, also longtime man at Lincoln Southeast, Hail Varsity Radio Road Show, Real Red tip-off here at the Single Barrel. So you're headed down. You need dinner. You need a steak. You need a pork chop. You need a burger. You need a whiskey or beer or just some lemonade. Single Barrel. I want to see you down here and get some grub before you head to PBA or whatever your Wednesday night plan is. So let's hear from Will Bolt. Expectations for Nebraska baseball. And the Big Red are kind of thinking regional or bust. They are one of the favorites in the Big Ten. And last year was magic, 20 games over 500, what could have been in Fayetteville. You were proud as a Nebraska fan with all Nebraska baseball did. But here is Will Bolt on the season goals from a little earlier today.
Just having a chance to host a regional, being in position to play home games. I think that's pretty well documented that's the most desirable route to get to Omaha, to get to the World Series, is to play at home. And, with the crowds that we have, the facility that we have, we feel like we have a pretty good home field advantage. So we got a long way to go, this year to start that journey. But year in and year out, I think you just put yourself in position to play well enough and consistently enough. And it starts at the beginning of the year and not, giving games away that you feel like not easing into it. I mean, you've got to go in head first and have the best chance of getting your pitching lined up, the lineup, the guys you feel like you can count on. I do feel like last year playing the conference-only schedule made us get to that point maybe a little bit sooner, but just having that urgency to do that day in and day out to give us a shot to win enough games to host a regional. I think that's the next step, is to get back to that point where you're at least in the conversation every year as to using our great facility for postseason games.
It's Will Bolt and Nebraska baseball. They're excited to get after it. They've had outdoor practice. They'll be in action a week from Friday. So those are the goals. Now let's hear from Will Bolt when it comes to his expectations. What do you expect from the team this year?
You're going to see some guys that have taken a step forward that are returners. We've already spoken about Griff, and I think there's some other guys in there that are much improved offensively. We got a lot of freshmen that came in, and again, the thing I always look to is like, you can pretty easily tell right away if a guy belongs. Just can he get to good velocity without cheating to it? And we've got several guys that fit that mold. So we hit more home runs this fall, I think, than any of us thought we would. I don't know if that's necessarily a trend. I mean, we've seen it a little bit this spring too. I know it's hard to tell sometimes in the indoor. It's always a debate. The exit velocity and the launch angle, does it add up? Like, is it a home run or a double? But I think we're going to impact the ball. I think we're going to be pretty balanced in terms of, being diverse. So, yeah, I think that we're going to have a chance to have a solid offense top to bottom. I don't think there's any easy outs in there. And I think kind of the trend you'll see is most of the guys that we roll out there are going to have a chance to impact the ball. So, that's always a good feeling to have, that if the pitcher makes a mistake, you can make him pay with an extra base hit.
That Will Bolt on the expectations, a little more power. Elijah, Coach Smith, Nebraska has some arms that we've seen, but you need kind of a new group of dudes to step up and be some rock stars on Friday night, on Sunday. And here is Coach Bolt specifically on that rotation, how it's coming together with Perry and company.
We've had multiple live outings now for our pitchers, so we need 4 starters the first weekend with the 4-game series. So I think there's probably a couple of guys maybe that have been more consistent than others in that position in particular. We also have to look at the best way our pitching staff sets up. So we have some guys that maybe could certainly be a starter, but maybe the team needs them to be out of the pen, and that kind of helps line up the pitching a little bit easier. So, we're starting to pare that down a little bit. This will be the last. We'll scrimmage Thursday, Friday, Saturday this week, and 2 of those will be outdoors. We've only had the Saturday scrimmage the last 2 weeks outside. So we've only seen a certain set of pitchers that have been able to get outside and throw on the mound, which that makes a difference too. So we'll see a little bit different set of guys this week that'll be able to pitch outside and compete in a different setting. So I would anticipate having that nailed down after this weekend.
Last thought here from Will Bolt. We'll get some thoughts from me and Coach Smith and Elijah here on what we've heard from Coach Bolt. But Rob Childress, one of my favorite just coaches ever at Nebraska, what he did, his development, incredible run at A&M, and him and his hunting dogs are back in the 402, which is a good thing.
He's the best of the best. I mean, I'm super thankful that he's here for not only me, but our entire coaching staff. His wisdom, his knowledge, the things he's seen. He just is. It's invaluable for us for him to be at practice and be able to say, "Hey, did you notice this?" In practice, or him to put his arm around a guy, that maybe needs a boost of confidence. That just that mentor role, and he's not only mentoring the players but the coaches too. I mean, he's been all of our mentors at one point or another, and that's just continued. So he just brings a great mindset to the team, to the field, the toughness part that we're seeking to be all about. He's lived it for years and years and years. So he brings an unbelievable dynamic to our staff.
That is Coach Will Bolt. He's fired up about his team. Very measured, even keel, but a killer competitor. Elijah, should be another fun year for baseball. Coach Smith, I know you get out to some ball when you get a chance, when you're done punting for dough, bud. And how about the Nebraska fans? You want to talk about starved and hungry? We say that all the time. If you're hungry and starved, get to Single Barrel. But Nebraska fans got out in droves to get all the reserve seating snatched up today. That's incredible. And this thing's about to boil over with something good needing to happen. You see it in Husker women's basketball. You saw it last year with Husker baseball. Basketball's been tough, the men, and then the Husker football season has been draining based on how close you were to being an 8-win football team, and you finished 3-9. But there's some optimism with the way things closed recruiting, and then a number of the assistants you got with the changes. So all in all right, Will, you got the whole state wanting a regional. Imagine that scene here if we get to May and Nebraska's a national seed and they're hosting, again, cart before the horse, but it's not like he can't coach up and deliver. He's pretty special.
Yeah, the other thing I love about with Childress, I mean, how nice would that be to have your mentor back on your staff helping you, and a great pitching coach and oversee everything. But those two guys obviously love Nebraska, and they know what Nebraska baseball is and has been. And, they came in and really grabbed Nebraska kids back, to come into the program. Yes. They got captains that are Nebraska kids that are also talented. They're doing things the right way. They're confident. I love it that they're setting their goals that high because they know it can happen here. And obviously you need great pitching. And if their hitting's, if they have a little more power, that's kind of exciting. But you lose a guy like Schwellenbach and those guys, you never know, and that's what he means by starting the journey. It's going to take a while to figure out if they can fill that Schwellenbach role and those other roles that they lost, because they definitely lost some talent. But I love the optimism, and I'm like you. Hitting outdoors is different than indoors. If they can get outside and hit, they can get outside and catch pop flies. That's a big advantage for the teams up north a little bit.
Coach Jeff Smith and Chris Schmidt, along with Elijah Herbal at the Single Barrel of Jock Doc on the way. Like what you hear? High-quality radio and podcast is part of what we do at Hail Varsity. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time for a Jock Doc Wednesday. Nebraska Orthopedic Center. Dr. Brandon Seifert's with us. Dr. Brandon, how's that three-point jumper?
Yeah, it's looking good. Yeah, I've been working on coaching the kids' teams, and I've been working on my three ball, and no, it actually looks terrible.
just continue to paint the rosy picture of, yeah, man, great arc, good rotation. It was an open three. I mean, you just keep selling me. A guy that will not be taking threes for a while with Washington is Bradley Beal. Pretty elite scorer, big-time talent in the Eastern Conference, but he is done for a while. Dr. Brandon, take us through this procedure. What's wrong with Beal?
Yeah, so definitely more of a unique injury, especially kind of from an isolated perspective. So they've been actually pretty forthcoming about some of the information about what injury he has, and so I'll kind of walk through a little bit of the anatomy with this. So basically the injury is in his wrist, and if you think about the wrist joint itself, there's basically kind of multiple small bones that make up the wrist joint. They're called carpal bones. But what happens here is the back row of those, on the thumb side, there's a bone at the end of that thumb called the scaphoid, and then right next to that's called the lunate. And what happens is those two are kind of main supporting structures on that kind of thumb side of the wrist. And there's a really strong ligament that connects those two. And so what's happened here is he has basically stretched or torn that ligament enough so that he's starting to have quite a bit of instability between those two bones, which we call the scaphoid and the lunate. So it's called the scapholunate ligament. But the big issue there is, again, the main supporting structure in the wrist, pretty uncommon to have that injury without, having a fracture somewhere else. Or this honestly is something we see more with really kind of higher level trauma, like car accident trauma, fall from a pretty significant height. So kind of interesting that a basketball player has this.
The scapholunate fracture, and remember, wasn't that long ago, was in your guys' office, and I ended up, due to a car accident, had a little bone in my wrist, kind of below my thumb, that was a hairline deal that obviously didn't need surgery, but there was pain. It wasn't quite a normal thumbs up type day, but you guys were awesome with it. I look at Beal's situation, and you get to the level he's at, you're able to use both hands, go both ways. But this is pretty significant. When it comes to procedure here, how do you guys go about your business here with the fix and the blood flow and just kind of getting back to normal? They did 10, almost 2 weeks. Beal did pretty intensive therapy and rehab before the decision to go do surgery. Is that common? And let's talk about the fix itself with the surgery.
Yeah, it's interesting here as you look at that. Again, most of the time when we see these type of ligament injuries in the wrist, it's very high level trauma. So usually at that point, and usually again, it's typically not occurring in professional athletes. And so usually in that situation, it's putting in a cast, immobilizing it, and then kind of following it along to watch kind of what that stability of those two bones are going to do. But to take somebody like him, who it doesn't sound like they did a lot of immobilization, almost they started into a rehab program right away, is a really a pretty aggressive approach to it. Reasonable, especially a professional athlete. You're kind of venturing down an area that's not a common injury for professional athletes. And so they started to rehab this right away. And my assumption here is just that there's enough, I don't want to say subtle, but there's enough instability that's there that, potentially if they were just doing rehab, they may not have seen a lot of changes on the x-ray. Usually on the x-ray, if there's a, complete tear in this area, you'll see those two bones separate out pretty significantly. And so my guess is on x-ray, there wasn't a whole lot of separation there. And that's probably why they rehabbed him initially. And then he probably is just clinically and functionally feeling like there's, some significant instability there. And that would be what's led them down this pathway to consider surgery. From a surgical perspective, there's all kinds of, different ways of going about this. For a high-level professional athlete like him, what they'll end up having to use are these new kind of little fancy little anchors little screws we put down to the bone that has kind of some suturing material associated with it. If he has enough kind of ligamentous tissue left, then you can actually sew and repair into that. But this tissue sometimes is not great. It can be pretty thin. Doesn't tend to hold suture all that well, and so you might have to do some kind of like suture ligamentous type of reconstruction with this would be what I'm assuming they're going to go after.
Dr. Brandon Seifert with us, and it is Nebraska Orthopedic Center, a Jock Doc Wednesday. Dr. Brandon, let's talk recovery here, and what's the timeline here for Bradley Beal? Gone for the season, maybe back for the playoffs, assuming Washington gets there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so in this setting, recovery-wise, so obviously he's going to be out the rest of the season. Probably looking at about somewhere between, I would say, 5 to 6 months for kind of a full return to play. Could be a little shorter than that. Just depends on how aggressive they are with his range of motion early on. But I would assume they would not be doing any significant contact for him for a good 4 to 6 months. Getting all of your mobility back, kind of the touch on the ball, the feel for the ball, that's going to take a while. That could be a good 8 or 9 months to kind of feel like you have that dexterity back, you have the range of motion back, and just kind of have the control on that wrist that you once had to be at that level that he plays at. Dr.
Brandon, let's get a thought too with just re-injury. You have intervention done here on this wrist, scapha luna region that is repaired. What's the likelihood for re-injury if he takes a hard fall going to the rim or even goes to the rim to try and hammer one home? I mean, basketball's a pretty physical sport. What are your thoughts here on re-injuring it, and how likely is that?
Yeah, early in the game, kind of early in the rehab process, definitely more likely. Again, just because the tissue here, even though it's a strong, robust ligament initially, when you have the big tear, again, there's not a lot of great tissue to repair back. And so tissue is pretty fragile. The repair is pretty fragile early on. So if they're too aggressive on his rehab or he doesn't follow the protocol closely, he can re-injure it kind of initially. But usually what happens is over time, as you do develop a lot of scar tissue in this area, the wrist gets pretty stiff. And so as he gets down the road, I think that kind of re-injury risk is going to be close to what it would be in a regular athlete. He's probably going to end up battling more stiffness than he will kind of instability. The other issue you worry about here long-term, having enough trauma to lead to, this kind of ligament tear is definitely going to set him up for some arthritis down the road, which, probably won't impact his basketball much, but obviously post-basketball could be an issue.
Dr. Brandon, trade deadline's Thursday. Is this type of injury gonna ward off suitors? I know Beal wants to be a wizard for life, but he's still a pretty good ball player. And if they're rebuild mode, is this injury gonna preclude him from being a hot item for another team to take on for next season?
I don't think so. No, I don't think they'll. I don't think it'll be a huge factor in that. I think he'll come back and he'll play well. And even next season, I think he'll be able to play pretty well for that too. I don't think he'll be super behind the curve next year. I think he can come out and be a pretty good player almost right away next year.
Dr. Brandon Seifert with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center. A Jock Doc Wednesday. Dr. Brandon, have a good rest of your week. Thanks for the time.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Like what you hear? High-quality radio and podcasts are just part of what we do at Hail Varsity. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor. I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, Road Show Wednesday, Real Red Tip-Off, Nebraska, Minnesota, coming up at 8 here at the Single Barrel. Chris Schmidt, Jeff Smith, the Hall of Fame coach, Elijah Herbal, and good stuff for Mike Babcock and Andy Markowski today. Tomorrow on the show, we inch closer to Super Bowl. Sunday, our favorite Husker sideline man and NFLer, Jeremiah Searles, with us. Coach Barnett checks in. We'll hear from Brandon Vogel. And, of course, Danny Burke with all your Super Bowl prop bets. And then how about a Bengal that is through and through? Dave Remington will be with us. So that is incredible. More Huskers in the Super Bowl week with Sam Cook and Russ Hochstein on Friday. And we may wrangle the Pride of Fairbury out of Beijing for another radio hit. So Coach Smith wants to get involved here with this steak and beer bet that we have going on, Elijah. And Coach Smith's going to call this Super Bowl shot. I can do a separate side bet with you, Elijah, for Friday. But we need to make our predictions for Nebraska basketball -1. They're underdogged at home.
1.5.
Okay, sorry, 1.5.
Yeah.
Give me Nebraska just when you think they're ready to absolutely abandon winning. They surprise you. I think they get it done tonight. Call me crazy. I've only sipped a little bit of Guinness. I've not dove into the pool of Guinness yet, so I'm going to say Nebraska. Elijah, you got a quick thought for tonight?
Yeah, I'm staying the hell away from Nebraska. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to take Minnesota. But Nebraska keeps it somewhat close. Let's say Minnesota by 6.
So you're not going double digit on me. Coach, what do you think?
I know I'm crazy.
Basketball.
I am optimistic. I think we match up really well. They have to be embarrassed and desperate, and they have to have some pride tonight. So I'm going to take them by 2. Minnesota averages 68, but we're going to shut their guards down. So we're going 65-63 Huskers.
I think first team to 70.
And I will not pick them the rest of the year if they lose this one.
Well, that's good.
Of course. This is the game. This is the game.
Okay, your take on the Super Bowl. Super Bowl, what happens?
Super Bowl. I'm taking the underdog because just Zach Taylor. There's something magical about this run, right? I know LA's defense is fantastic, but Zach Taylor's going to figure it out and get a couple things, get it in Chase's hands a little bit. Joe Burrow. I'm a believer.
I think he's incredible. I just think
I love the Stafford story too. He finally gets out of Detroit,
there's too much familiarity with McVay and Zach.
I'm taking Cincinnati 34-31 in overtime.
Okay. Oh, the overtime run continues.
Yes,
which is good.
Yes, it has to. It's
Cincinnati's for sure got those Believe posters up in their locker room.
Oh, no doubt. They're bringing Ted Lasso in for the pregame talk.
They're all Ted ain't going to go near him for beating his Chiefs, but pretty good, Coach. Appreciate you much.
Can't beat him, join him. Thanks for having me on. I love it.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll see Coach.
Thanks, Elijah.
Friday and Saturday for some high school hoops as well. And Elijah, be good to see you manana over on KFOR.
Bright and early.
That's right. Wake up call tomorrow. Take care. Enjoy Nebraska basketball. I mean that sincerely. And we'll talk to you tomorrow at 4 with Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
A Hurrdat Media Production.